activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
All right, welcome back, everybody. It's time for us to begin our CPS week, and what we're looking at is the interface of family law and marijuana law, and particularly for people that are in medical marijuana states, parents that are perfectly protected, or you'd think they'd be protected, under their use of cannabis for medical purposes, but unfortunately, oftentimes get CPS involved in their situation. We're making a call right now to Spokane, Washington, where we're going to speak with Serra Frank from Moms for Marijuana. She's involved in one of these cases that involves a young girl named Lilly Fisher and her dad trying to fight for custody. So pick this up on the line just as soon as we can. So,
hello.
Hello, can I speak with Serra, please?
This is Sarah.
Hey, Sarah, it's Russ with the Russ Belville Show. How are you?
I'm good, Russ. How are you?
I'm great. I was just giving our listeners just a little bit of an update on your work and what's going on here with the Justice for Lilly case, and maybe we can talk about that. But first, let's talk about Moms for Marijuana and what you guys are doing and why this fight against CPS has gotten our attention.
Well, Moms for Marijuana is essentially just a large grassroots network of people, and we get inquiries all the time from people for various reasons. We have people join because they've been arrested, or they are using it for medical and it saved their lives, or their children have been arrested and denied a college education because of some drug crime that they got when they were 18. But quite a few inquiries that we get are related to CPS and are related to parents losing their children because of their use of marijuana or even their alleged use of marijuana. I really started paying attention to CPS it's about 5 years ago when I met a gal in Idaho. She came into one of our meetings down there, and her daughter had been taken at 1 year old because the police came into her house. Somebody had called in an anonymous tip that it was a drug house, and they came in and searched the whole house and found nothing except for a broken bong in someone else's backpack. It didn't even belong to her, but they took her child anyway, and then they adopted her out. And she hasn't seen her since 2006. And that just crushed me, that just broke my heart, and I wanted to do something about it. So I started paying attention, and then I started meeting more people who have had CPS involved in their lives because of marijuana. And all of the allegations and the claim that they hold on to and use to remove these children are injury to a child or child endangerment or abuse or neglect, and they're basing it on marijuana, which is not dangerous. It's non-toxic, it can't hurt anyone, and parents who use marijuana aren't necessarily bad parents just because they use marijuana. They're not going to go neglect their child just because they use marijuana. And then I got more and more involved, and I met more people. I met a gal down in Portland when I lived there who had her twins taken at birth because she tested positive because she was a medical patient. She eventually got them back, but they stole 6 months of her newborn babies' lives from them. And then I got in touch with Lilly Fisher. I've known him for quite a few years, and we began a relationship, and then we were fighting for his daughter, Lilly. It was a custody battle. And all of a sudden, we had to get CPS involved because she was in a very unsafe situation. And he wanted to help her, and the only way he knew how was to call the agency that is supposed to help her. Well, they got involved, and they took her out of that unsafe situation, which we were very, very grateful for. And then they turned and looked at him and said, well, we're not going to give her to you because you're a medical marijuana patient. And we're not going to give her to you because we feel you need to do this and do this and do this. And it just has blown up.
Now, we're talking about Washington State, a legal medical marijuana patient here being denied custody after custody was denied to the mother. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, the baby was taken from the mother. The dependency was started with the mother. It was a very unsafe situation, and it was very necessary for this agency to be involved.
So as far as CPS is concerned, this dangerous mother and this dangerous father are both equally unable to take care of their own child.
Right. Even though Billy's never had his child, and he's never had any kind of impairment charge to do with marijuana, but they're saying that because he's a medical patient and he's admitted that he's quit before and had to start using it again because his back hurt, they say that that means that he's a drug addict. He has chemical dependency problems, and he needs 30 days of inpatient rehab and 2 years of aftercare drug treatment to get him clean from his medicine.
Wow, this is just insane that we would require, and this is what a medical marijuana state, and the voters are passing this. I think in Washington State it passed like 59% or more, and I don't think the idea here was that you had to choose between your kids and your health. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right, and then they voted, in November to stop locking everybody up just for having marijuana, and now they're going to lock him up for 30 days and withhold his child from him if he doesn't. And today we actually had court, and they've changed the placement plan to, instead of being returned home, to be permanent adoption if he doesn't complete these things.
Wow. Now, is this the first case we've heard of in Washington State dealing with a medical marijuana patient, or just the latest one?
I believe it's just the latest. I'm not sure how many, how public they have been in the past, but I've met quite a few people who are dealing with CPS or have dealt with them, or even just family law. And that's what we're finding. And it's not just CPS, it's family law. And it's the juvenile dependency issues that have to do with marijuana. Parents use it against each other in custody battles, and the courts go against marijuana despite state law.
This is frustrating to me as well, because we see, there's other stories that make the news with regard to danger to children. I'm specifically going to go to the gun angle. There was a story in Idaho when we dealt with Lindsay Reinhardt and her trying to get her kids, and she was using medical marijuana for multiple sclerosis. And the same week, some mom had left her kid in a car, her kids in the car, unsupervised with a loaded .45, which the older one got a hold of and shot the younger one with. There's never a child endangerment child. They don't take the kids away from that. I refuse to believe that a pot plant is worse than a loaded gun.
Right. And I think that's what we have to explain to people, because of the lies and because of the stigma surrounding marijuana, people actually view it as more dangerous than a loaded gun. And that's just ridiculous.
Let's go. Let me do a little devil's advocate here, because I imagine, and I've heard from opponents, that part of their justification behind this is, well, marijuana is illegal, and people will do home invasion robberies and break in and try to steal it, and so therefore, it's a danger to the child. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Well, I'm an adopted child. And I grew up in a home that was very well off, and I also gave up a child for adoption. And his home, they're a lot more well off than I was, and they have big screen TVs, and they have nice cars and nice jewelry, and I would say that they're more at risk for a home invasion than a marijuana plant, because of a marijuana plant. It's that type of risk is a what if. It's like them saying that, like with Lilly Fisher, what if he's impaired? They don't have any proof of impairment. They don't know him. They've never seen him. In fact, he's, been under the influence to walk of marijuana every single day because he has to have it to walk around. Mm-hmm. So in order for him to go into a courtroom, he's taken his medicine. In order for him to go anywhere, he has taken his medicine, just like I have, just like any medical patient. And they're okay with him being on prescription pharmaceuticals, opiate narcotics, over marijuana. But in all reality, they want him off of everything before he can have his daughter back.
Oh, so they're even maintaining the stance that they don't want him on prescription legal drugs either?
Right. They want him to be completely sober and have a drug-free lifestyle, and instead be in excruciating pain every day.
Right.
Any parent who is in pain every day knows that your patience level when it comes to your children because of your pain is way worse than any impairment you would get off of marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah, we're speaking with Serra Frank. She's the founding director of Moms for Marijuana International, and we're talking about the Lilly Fisher case up in Spokane, Washington. Did I get that right, Spokane?
Yes.
Okay, so Spokane, Washington. So, of course, we're talking about a legal medical marijuana patient who's being denied child custody and being asked by family law, or directed by family law here, to give up not just medical marijuana, but all the other prescriptions that help him to lead a pain-free life. I'm wondering, Serra, is there any evidence, or have you ever heard stories like this with respect to parents who drink wine at night, that they might just be too impaired to deal with their kids?
Well, that's actually what they say. You know, we asked about that when they started talking about marijuana, and we said, well, what about the people who, you know, have a drink as they watch the football game, or have, you know, wine with dinner and then drive their kids home from the restaurant, or, you know, what about these parents? And they say, oh, well, those are legal. That's legal. You're like, well, wait a minute, marijuana is legal here too.
Yeah.
So it really is a matter of the department's policies catching up with public perception and state law.
Yeah, and to me it also seems like a willful ignorance about the effects of cannabis on people.
Yes.
Willfully thinking that somehow if a parent is a good parent and they're sober and then they smoked a joint, suddenly they turn into Mr. Hyde, you know, a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing.
That's exactly it. They think that after he smokes 2 bowls in the morning to take away his pain, that he is so impaired that he wouldn't be able to function at all. They also think that he would be so detrimental to his daughter that if she dropped a pee, he would be just so out of it that he'd freak out because she dropped a pee and harm her. These are their allegations, you know, and
they've got nothing in Billy's background at all to ever show that he's violent or mistreating of adults or children, do they?
No, nothing at all whatsoever. And they go around in circles. And I mean, he does have a criminal history. He made a mistake when he was 18. He did his time. And he'll acknowledge that. Mm-hmm. And they try to use that against him in a way. And that's actually how they're getting away with using his medical recommendations against him. Because in the state of Washington, the RCW code 59.518.120.
Serra, let me have you hold on that thought just a second. We'll come back after the break so we can get into the details of this, because I like where this story's going as far as getting the details here. And this is our extended look at Child Protective Services and family law. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on 420 Radio. We're back with Serra Frank right after this.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers, because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Hey, little dude, send your mama and daddy out of the room. I gotta get you up on this. You know who I am. Snake, dealing in weed, coke, crack, your choice. Take one hit and you'll do anything to cop more. Steal from your mama, lie, cheat on your homeboys. But hey, that's the price you pay when you deal with dudes like me. Now, some folks will tell you that I'm dealing in poison. But hey, do I look like the kind of guy that would do that to a kid like you? Yes!
Ever wonder how often to change your bong water? The most effective method for baking pot brownies? The best destinations for a ganja getaway? How to hide herb in your car? Whether to grow your own? How precisely to legalize it? Or how something as wonderful as marijuana ever got to be illegal in the first place? Finally, you can find all these answers and much more in the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook, featuring 420 things to do when you're stoned. Since 1974, High Times magazine has covered marijuana in all its aspects and wonders, from cultivation to legalization to the herb's enduring and exalted place in popular culture. Packed with inside information, the official High Times Pot Smoker's Handbook rolls all of this collected wisdom together into a single indispensable ganja guide, including an entertaining look at marijuana's history, profiles of herb-friendly travel destinations and festivals, favorite potluck recipes from the High Times staff, smoking skills, advocacy and activism, essential marijuana movies and songs, profiles of famous cannabis strains, comprehensive growing information, celebrity endorsements, and much more. This is truly, finally, the ultimate guide to green living.
Five of the last 7 major party candidates to run for president, 3 of the last 7 vice presidential candidates, and the last 3 presidents have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Welcome back, everyone. 49 after the hour. We're continuing our look at child protective services and family law versus medical marijuana. Our guest is Serra Frank. She's the founding director of Moms for Marijuana and integrally involved in the Justice for Lilly Fisher case. Serra, welcome back.
Thank you, Russ.
We were just getting into talking about Billy, the father here. He's a medical marijuana patient who's being denied custody of his child due to his medical marijuana use in a state that not only has medical marijuana, but also legalized marijuana. We were just discussing how Billy did have one criminal record in his past. And I just want to reemphasize, this was not a violent crime record, right?
Right. He's not a violent person.
Okay, so go on with where you were going with the RCW before we left.
Right. It's Washington voters passed a law just a few years ago that added a parental protection to the medical marijuana law. And it's RCW 6951A120. And it states that they cannot solely use cannabis as a reason to restrict or inhibit parental rights.
Okay.
And the way we have found that they are getting away with this is the word solely. When combined with, say, a criminal history that they might have a concern about, or any other thing that they deem concerning, like, for instance, you move. You know, you've lived a few different places in your life, or you had a really bad childhood. They'll say that statistically you're going to abuse your child because your parents abused you. So they'll grab onto that one and then grab onto the criminal history, and then they can grab onto the cannabis as well. And that's how they're getting away with this, and how they're getting around that law is that word solely. They can't solely use cannabis, so they'll grab onto everything else. Mental illness.
It can be a mitigating factor when they look at other factors. So they're considering Billy's criminal past as the factor, and then medical marijuana is just attached to that?
They're considering just all of them, and the key factor really is the medical marijuana, because everything else they have is not substantial enough to remove parental rights. You have to have, in order to remove a child from a home, you have to have substantial risk of imminent harm to their physical and psychological development. And they're saying that because he's a medical marijuana patient and he has a criminal history and, unfortunately he was abused as a child, that these are all enough to be substantial and as a reason to keep him from his child. He's never had his child. This child was not removed from him. He's never done anything to this child.
Okay.
And logically, he is a next relative placement.
So, when family law and CPS are making these allegations that he'd be an unfit parent, they're not also adding in that somehow secondhand smoke would harm the child or anything about the marijuana itself harming the child? No, they have absolutely no mention of that. They're saying he would be too impaired. Wow.
And that he admitted that a couple hours after he'll smoke a bowl in the morning, he'll go to work. So they're saying that he admitted to driving while under the influence. And they're also saying, like in the courtroom, when they were looking, he did a UA, and it came back positive, of course, and they were looking for the nanograms, because they want to, they play on that nanogram thing. And his nanograms after 2 days after smoking was 6 nanograms, which we all know, and we've had these discussions before with the 502 debate and stuff, that 6 nanograms does not mean impaired. That doesn't even have anything to do with impairment. It has to do with the levels of cannabinoids in your system.
So you're saying this wasn't just a urine screen then? Was there a blood draw to get the active THC?
No, it was a urine screen.
Oh, okay.
And the commissioner herself used to do drug court. And she was reading the results, and she didn't see the 6 nanogram part. She saw 800 nanograms.
And that would probably be the inactive metabolites, I'd imagine.
Right. So the people who are in charge and have the authority to terminate parental rights don't even know what they're talking about when it comes to medical marijuana. They have no clue. They have no knowledge of medical marijuana. I had one social worker, I was explaining, some of the things I know about marijuana, and I was talking about, the 10,000-year history of this plant, and nobody's ever died, and I just can't believe that. You can't believe everything you read off the internet. And I'm like, well, science shows that it's true. History shows that it's true. The doctors say that it's true. So who should I believe, you or the doctors?
Yeah.
And it just, the ignorance in these departments, because most of these people, they don't have the exposure with marijuana, and they're taught that it's this horrible, horrible thing, and it's a gateway drug, and it's going to make people insane and hurt each other, and all the same reefer madness that has been going on for 100 years, all based off of a lie.
Yeah.
It's amazing what lies can do when people run with them.
Well, they say a lie makes it halfway around the world before the truth has even got its pants on.
Right.
Sarah, in this situation here, what's the time frame we're talking about? How long has this little girl been separated from either of her parents?
It has been 7 months.
7 months. And she was in foster care, I imagine?
She is in foster care with an elderly couple. The father is 84, the mother's in her 70s. They're great people, wonderful people, and we're very happy that she's with them because, the unfortunate stories like Alex Hill in Texas, and, there are bad foster parents out there and dangerous foster parents, and these guys are great, and we're happy about that. But that's 7 months that Billy has now missed with his daughter and that these people have had with her. And they're strangers to this family.
Yeah.
And another thing that we're seeing is that, they use marijuana to do this, but the CPS problem is not just about marijuana. It's about a lot of different aspects, such as they use tactics to make things go on, and they intimidate and they scare people by saying, we're going to adopt out your kids. This could lead to an adoption. And then they trick them into agreeing to a dependency that could ultimately lead to the termination of their rights.
Mm-hmm.
And like with Billy's case, the courts are required to give him a fact and finding hearing where they look at all the facts of the case, and they have a hearing, and they make a decision on what services that the parents need to complete before they can have their children returned to them. And that hearing's supposed to take place within 75 days after the dependency petition is filed and the child is removed from the home. And Billy's took place on the 89th day, and they only did half of it that day, and then it was postponed for another 7 weeks.
Wow.
And these courts are have a deadline to get this case finished, is what they say. And they're the ones who are postponing it so long, and if you fight them, it doesn't matter. The time keeps ticking away, and when you fight them, they make it harder.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, marijuana is what brings our community into this, because they're using marijuana to do these things. But this CPS problem is a big problem that needs to be addressed.
I agree, and that's what we're doing for the rest of this week, is we're taking a deep look at this, and it's not just going to be from the marijuana angle. I've got Mark Reinhart from a blog called Idaho Calling, who's been doing some investigative research in the financing and incentive programs in CPS that actually incentivize the government to take people's kids and put them in different families. It's just insane. We got to wrap up here, coming up at the top of the hour, Sarah. So I want to give you a chance to give people any contact information or places where they might learn more about the Lilly case.
For sure. It's the Fight for Lilly on Facebook. It's just Facebook/fight4Lilly, Lilly, like Billy. And then, of course, momsformarijuana.org. And we have a rally today, and we've had a call to action with quite a few people who are, have joined and are putting on their rallies. And this is just the beginning of what we are doing. We have plans to challenge CPS policy regarding marijuana at all.
All right. Well, Serra Frank.
Even in non-medical.
Yes, Serra Frank, thank you for keeping up that fight and keeping up the Moms for Marijuana. We'll be in touch again to find out how this turns out, and good luck to you and Billy.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right. And stick around, folks. We're not done talking about CPS. Coming up next, we got Sabrina Fedrick from Normal. She's going to be talking about cases all around the country and the national fight against family law and CPS. That's all the time we got here for Hour 1, live from Nampa, Idaho. We'll be back in the studio tomorrow in Portland and continuing CPS Week all this week. For everyone here at the Russ Belville Show, I'm Radical Russ. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you